long dark hair, smile on her face will erase your worries and your cares. She's got the kind of eyes that'll draw you deep inside, where you feel warm and welcome and loneliness will not abide. She lives her life with such grace and humility, helps you remember what it is that you forgot to be. She's the fire in the night, you never want to go back outside, in the cold and the rain, but you know you're gonna be alright. We are as strong as our weakest parts, a rusty chain or a badly broken heart. Arm in arm we will heal the pain. There is no weak link in this human chain. Guitar going crazy. There is no weak link in this human chain. The audience is having a great time. I look back at my kids and they're just like, they're not sure if they should be totally embarrassed, but they're getting into it. She's the chime bells of your childhood. She's the postman at the door. She's the package, she's the letter. She's always good news, no matter who it's for. She's old school, old country. She's your grandma's favorite recipe, long since lost. Oh, but you still taste it in every home-cooked meal. We are as strong as our weakest part, a rusty chain or a badly broken heart. Arm in arm we will heal the pain. I love the drummer. Bah, bah, bah. There is no weak link in this human chain. Then I gotta scream, there is no weak link in this human chain. Of course, we had a great sound system, and this guy doing the house sound, he was making me sound like a rock star. And my kids are singing along because I got the words rolling in the floor monitor, making it real easy for them. We are as strong as our weakest part. Now me and the kids we're rocking together. A rusty chain or a badly broken heart. Arm in arm we can heal the pain. There is no weak link in this human chain. There is no weak link in this human chain. There then came the climax. There is no weak link in this human chain. The drums roll, the guitar. Oh my gosh! Hey, this was almost like being there, guys. You know, I mean, it's hard work pretending you're a rock and roll singer, having to play the lead guitar and the drums, and talk your audience through it all at the same time. But Jules' manager out of Nashville, he went way in the back with his beautiful camera and he videotaped the whole song. And so that night on the bus, we all sat there just laughing our asses off at the old man running around out there acting like a fool. Well, it was a good night. One more song about my mama, and then we'll answer some questions. Hanging in the porch of the Homestead house is an old green military rucksack, and there's a photo of me in that rucksack at not quite a year old, and my mom carried me on her back in that old rucksack, drawstring, and that's how she carried the kids around. She sang to me. She taught me early on. I asked her, and she told me she started singing to me long before I was born, but she certainly did a lot of teaching, a lot of singing, carrying me around on her back. Close your eyes and I'll take you back to that faded green military rucksack where my mama used to carry me around on her back. Way back in the old days. That's where I first remember learning how to love to sing. Listen to my mama's voice and the birds in the spring. Walking all the way to town, it wasn't no big thing. Way hey, back in the old days. Walking through the wilderness, the wolves and the bears. Just a little boy smiling, not a worry or a care. I was busy playing with my mama's golden hair. Way hey, back in the old days. No close neighbors, but I never felt alone. I was surrounded by my family in a warm log home. In the forest and the meadows where I used to love to roam. Way hey, back in the old days. Whoa, you never have to go far. Whoa, you just follow the light of the northern stars. Whoa, it's a place anybody can go to get away. Whoa, back to yesterday. I got pictures and stories and songs in my brain. All I gotta do is get back on that memory train. And when it comes to a stop, I'm back there again. Way back in the old days. I see my mama and my daddy build a cabin out of logs. I see the brothers, sisters picking then the mushrooms and the berries in the bog. We was living off the land but living high on the hog. Way hey, back in the old days. Well, I'm a son of the midnight land. I'm just a barefoot boy and a homestead child. But I know the trails take you to the places where the rivers are glacier cold and the land's still running wild. Whoa, you never have to go far. Whoa, you just follow the light of the northern stars. Whoa, it's a place anybody can go to get away. Whoa, back to yesterday. Close your eyes and I'll take you back to that faded green military rucksack where a young, golden-haired Swiss immigrant woman took the time out of her busy homesteading life, pickling and canning, making sauerkraut and smoking fish and smoking moose meat and taking care of 8 kids and an ornery husband and a bunch of cattle and horses. Still took the time from all of that, brothers and sisters of the fine third-place bookstore here in Seattle, to teach culture and language and music to that little boy riding on her back. Way hey, back in the old days. You know, I first debuted that song when Jewel was opening for in Portland and in Sisters, Oregon. Who is that? Cougar.
John Cougar Mellencamp.
So she opened for the Cougar. Well, I opened for Jewel. By the time the audience of 5,000 people heard me and Jewel, they were not all that interested in old Mellencamp anymore. So my fantasy goes. That's the first time I sang that song. And when I went on at the end, where a mama and I took time out of her homesteading life and she did this and she that, the audience was laughing so hard they couldn't even hear what I was saying anymore. So I love that song because it's a fun song. So let me take a few questions and then I'll sell a whole bunch of books and sign some autographs and we'll all go home. So you're bound to have a few questions. Don't hesitate. Yes, ma'am.
Who does the work while you're out here?
That is a good question. Due to Discovery's depiction of our lifestyle, they would have the world think that we're all living very remote, all working very hard nonstop. Well, my wife and I don't live on the homestead. The rest of them live on the homestead right next to it. My brother Otto has cows. I am older and much smarter than my brother, and I sold my cows long ago. I don't even have a dog, so when I want to pack up and come out and do things like this, I can just go. But believe me, there's a lot of Kilchers up there to carry on the hunting and foraging and gathering. Yes, ma'am.
You all, the kids and you all play something. Did your mom play?
You know, my mom played violin, was a beautiful opera singer. My dad played a little guitar, and he played flutes. He made flutes out of various things. So it wasn't so much that we had a musical mom and dad as much as we had a creative mom and dad who made instruments out of what, dried reeds. He'd get kelp from the beach and figured out a way to dry it where it stayed hollow, and he'd play flutes. And so the creativity, the storytelling, the songwriting, the entertaining yourself, entertaining each other, making stuff up, plays, whatever. So we got a big dose of that creativity. Yes, ma'am.
What kind of birds do you see in Alaska?
What kind of
Birds.
birds are there in Alaska? My oldest sister Mossy is actually quite an authority on birds. When she was about your age on the homestead, she just started loving birds. All of us kids took to the outdoors because the cabin was kind of small and things would get crazy in little cabins. So all of us, I took an interest in cows and horses. My sister Mossy took an interest in birds. There's many kinds of sparrows. There's many kinds of thrushes, hermit thrush, the varied thrush. There's robins. There's swallows. There's hawks. There's eagles. Even once in a while, a hummingbird comes up to Alaska, and that's always a treat. I go, oh my God, come, there's a hummingbird. Good question.
I get a little bit emotional here. But, you're singing all these songs and you're sounding really cool, but I want people to know what a kind, gentle heart you have. And I experienced this when your children and my children were younger and everything. What a kind father. And I'll never forget when you took the opportunity to help me out and sang at my brother's funeral. I'll never forget that. And I guess I'll always remember you as a man with a kind, wonderful heart. You were a great father, a great friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it is important when we have to evaluate ourselves. What other people think, positive or negative, really doesn't amount. We have to validate ourselves, and the only way I could get to a point where I could also love the kind and gentler self I've always been was to get over the guilt and shame for all the times I wasn't that kind of a person. And sadly, we're at our best the farthest we are from home. We're at our best with other people. You have kids and you hear a beautiful comment on your kid and you say, are you talking about my kid? Yeah. So thank you for that. Thank you for that heartfelt compliment. I take it to heart, and really we need, to have self-love and to look at ourselves and say, I'm proud of you. Looking at me in the mirror there, you've done a good job. You worked through a lot of stuff, and you can only get to that point where you have the amount of self-love that we really all should have and we all deserve. If you can look at the worst, look the worst in the eye. My favorite part of the book is the last chapter. It's about my grandson, and the journey from how I changed as a human being, as a young father, then as an older father, and then as a grandparent, and then to get to the end of the road, at least to the end of my book, where every time I was with my grandson, I realized he has never seen me angry, he's never seen me impatient, he has always seen me kind and generous, and he thinks I'm a rock star. I love him and he loves me, and I think he's perfect and he thinks I'm perfect. And to finally get to that point in life where I felt worthy of somebody's love, and to feel love for him. So I was writing the very last chapter. I was just about done, and the phone rings. And this is a true story because it won't sound like it's true. It's my daughter. Hi, Dad. I say, Jewel, you can't believe I'm just putting the last period on the end of my book. I'm writing about Case. Well, why did you put that as the last chapter? I said, well, kind of like dessert. It's kind of like a feeling of I have arrived at a place, at least with one little person on this whole world. I ain't screwed it up yet. I got a clean slate.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, he did try me a couple times, like Jewel. Well, I'll get to this in a minute. So Jewel says, well, great, beautiful to hear. I want to plant a little seed. And I said, plant away, daughter. She said, Ty and I are divorced. I'm a single mom. Case is missing a lot of stuff. I want him to come up and spend a month with you in Alaska. I want you to teach Case some important things. And I got so goosebumpy on my vocal cords that I couldn't talk. This daughter, who had good reason to not want to leave her kid with me for the horror stories that she remembered. This daughter, who when my oldest son Shane left his kids with me, said to Shane, "You're leaving your kids with who? You're leaving your little kids with Dad?" This same daughter now said, "Opa, there's some things Case needs to learn, and you're the only man that can teach him." Now, she wasn't just talking about take him to Homer and take him down to the Safeway and McDonald's every day. Take him out to the head of the bay. Take him to the cabin. Show him where water comes from. Show him where wood comes from. Show him if you want to eat, you got to cook. You got to go and get it. He's got to learn these things. I said, "I'd be honored." She said, "No, Dad, I'd be honored." So she brings him up, and we spend time alone out there in the wilderness. So one day, he's in the car, and I got to buckle him in the seat, and I got to go reach in the door, and my back's hurting, and I get him all buckled in, acting all like patient, nice Opa, so he thinks I'm a nice guy. Then he says, "Opa, could you go in and get Pink Froggy?" I don't know why. I have been blessed with this genetic disposition towards impatience, but my dad had it, and I'll tell you what, you learned you never to get your dad impatient, because the words would come, and then the hands would fly, and you'd end up hurting. So I breathe deep, go in and get Pink Froggy, and he can throw me sticks on the wall, one of those frogs with long legs, sticky arms and legs. So the last thing I want in my car. But here's your Pinky Frog. "Oh, Daddy, Opa, would you go get Fluff Fluff?" That's his rabbit. Oh, Fluff Fluff. So I make another long journey, like 10 steps to the stairs, 5 steps up, 5 steps in. Then he goes, "Opa, would you get Sippy Cup?" Oh, he needs this sippy cup. So about that time, I was like, and I could hear the demons and the dogs barking like, "Turn us loose. We'll get him. We'll tear him and little Pink Froggy and little Fluff Fluff and that damn sippy cup. We'll tear them all up. Let us loose." And I'm like, "Here, grandson, here's your sippy cup." And I breathed deep, and in a few minutes it was over. That was like but it's, so the moral of that story is,
Keep on keeping.
keep on keeping on. And you know what? For those of us who have PTSD, whether it's a big bang that we got the PTSD from, or it was a whole bunch of little bangs through life, it never gets easier. You always get scared. You always get startled. You always want to wring that kid's neck that asks you for something, that tries you. The difference is you learn to breathe, and you learn to think, and you learn to keep your mouth shut and let it pass. I want to just give a little credit to my friend Froggy back there with a steel chainsaw hat. He's a fellow veteran. He knows all about PTSD. Spent a year in Alaska. His dream. So we found a cabin, and he spent a year up there. And he and I spent some good time out together, healing. Couple of old Vietnam vets out in the woods healing. And I have deep respect for anybody, especially men, because us men have a little more harder time talking and feeling and emoting and letting things go. So hats off to any of you out there on the healing path. So more questions. Do we have any on the Facebook Live?
We got one. In the book you speak about learning to be a liar. Which of your kids is the biggest liar?
I start off talking about, to survive, I had to learn how to lie. And then I had to learn how to take a lying, delinquent personality who broke into houses, stole cars, broke into businesses, stole gas, did everything but go to kiddie jail. And the reason I quit that stuff was when all my friends started getting picked up and sent to kiddie jail, I was smart enough to quit. So I had to turn that around. So I became a storyteller. One time somebody asked me, when an entertainer is on stage telling stories, can you believe what he tells you? I said, don't believe a word of it. In fact, I have a review of my book somewhere on Amazon, and whoever reviewed it said, Well, you know, you can't tell for sure what to believe because he comes right out and says he's a liar. So which one of my kids, you know, I will say all of my kids are blessed with a ability to pontificate and elaborate and spin a good yarn. Like a good friend of mine in Alaska said, if you can't make your story sound better than what really happened, what's the use of even telling the story? Any more questions out there? Yes.
I'm just curious if you thought your kids learned to be better parents than you thought you were, or is that something you talk about?
You know, I can say that I didn't teach them a thing about parenting. If they learned anything good, it was probably learning to do the things I didn't do and neglected to do, and not to do some of the things that I did wrong. They've all been very conscientious parents and have great kids. So yeah, you know, it wasn't all bad. I did some good stuff along the way too, and certainly my first wife, the children's mother, put in a lot of good time too. You know, when you think about it, what goes into raising a kid. I mean, like in my case, there was animals, there was wilderness, there was canyons, cliffs, beaches, trees. There was a whole village of wilderness that helped raise us. So, you know, parents never do all the parenting. Some genetics, some the mom and dad do, but sometimes the best thing the parents can do is introduce their kids to many different situations and opportunities and learn to stay out of their way so they can grow up. Yeah.
In the episode where you were training horses and you were showing Otsley how to do it, I was so impressed with how you could see the healing that had happened in your relationship because you were so patient with Otz, and Otz wasn't expecting you to be that patient. How did that feel when you got done with that training session that day?
Yeah, that probably would be the best story that I filmed, because Otsley, of all my kids, had the most fear of horses. He just, by disposition, was hesitant, and a horse can pick that up, picks up the hesitancy, the nervousness, and so he swore the horses were after him. He'd come in and tell me, the horses chased me. I'd say, oh, bullshit, son, horses don't chase people. So we're in the corral one day, and I hear thundering hooves, and I look, and this horse has his ears back, his mouth open, his teeth bared, and he is wanting to take a bite out of my son Otsley, and he's running and does a low dive under the bottom rail of the corral. So there was something about him and horses. So he had a lot of fear, and of course, had I been different, I would have been patient and calm and but I wasn't, and so his fear and dread of horses continued. So now he's close to 40, and I am learning a gentle way of training horses. Won't go into it, but basically you just calm them, you gentle them, you run them until they kind of submit to you, and then from them saying, hey, I'm turning my power over to you, I want to be in your herd, then you slowly bridle them, saddle them, get on them, and all of that without any fear. They want to be with you, they bonded, they've joined up with you, and so to demonstrate that to Otsley, I mean, it's almost like a miracle. You run this horse around and around and around the corral, and at first they're running away from you, then pretty soon they feel like, whoa, you're driving us out, you're scaring me, I don't want to be driven away out where there's bears and tigers and lions. Don't keep chasing me, please let me be your buddy. And a wild horse will just, when you do it right and enough, and you turn your back to them, they'll just come up and lay their head right on your shoulder. Wow. A wild horse, just to become your friend, to bond with you. So to demonstrate that, and then have Otsley try it himself, and it was a real story, and it was emotional. And a lot more healing went on there between. I wrote a song about that, but I don't have it memorized enough to sing it. But it's called "Walking the Gentler Way," and it's about training horses, and it's about a father-son relationship. And great question. A couple more, yes, ma'am.
Do you have any CDs with you to sell?
I do not, but. iTunes, Spotify has most of them for downloads, and my webpage has most of the hard copy. What a day and age we live in! I mean, who can record a CD and have it for sale across the United States? Downloadable, pretty amazing. Any more questions there from people around the world?
We're good on this end. Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure sharing a few songs, sharing a few stories. I'm going to spend the next 2 or 3 months when I'm not filming, touring around the United States, letting the fans set up the bookstores, letting the fans set up the stops. And so it's going to kind of be a fan-powered tour. So I'll meet a lot of cool folks, sign a lot of books, sing songs, tell stories, and it'll be great. So we'll put out the call. Looking for ambassadors. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.